Hello, you guys. This is Colatus and Latius, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be a short recording because the event, I can't believe how time went by so quickly, but the chapter story event is ending today. I wonder what the next event is. I hope to God it's a keto event because that's like an easy skip. Literally, any keto event that comes is a 100% skip for me, and unless if it's his birthday, that's a different story. But other than that, the one thing that annoyed me is this part because they don't have, okay, fine, they don't have the thing, you know, the resets, which is fine, except I think in those resets you get keys, or here, you know, and it's like, oh my god, really, you're gonna lock them behind that? Or actually, where the fuck did you even get keys? 6? That's a lot. Actually, hold on. Hold on. You know what? I didn't know. Okay. See, because what I was trying to get at is, I'm like, oh, I want those keys to actually read the story. And I'm like, come on now, can I at least read the goddamn stories here? In all actuality, it only cost me, what, 200 diamonds, I guess? Okay, that's what I was after. 1, 2, 6. Okay, so go back. Okay, never mind. This video is actually going to be a bit longer. Oops. Is there any way you can access these stories? Because if not, that's what my video is for. So, I'm going to start with my favorite. Literally, going to go like that. So, Victor, and then goes Lucia, and then Keto. Gavin, and then Keto. So, the teacup, let's start with that. The moon wandered in the sky in a small attic. Oh, Victor. Okay, I see. So it makes more sense if you read the story. In the small attic, so spoilers up the ass if you're wondering, In a small attic, I'm just warning you guys, Victor stood with his back against the wall, carefully picking up among some fine shards of crystal. Some of the shards were dotted with scarlet blood, mixed with the tears the girl shed just now. They looked dazzling and depressing because she literally, I don't know, the cup broke, and while picking it up, she realized, she's like, oh, the pain isn't so bad. So she started to actually try to hurt herself. Yes. Although, to be honest, I'm not surprised she did that, because anybody going through shit like that, man, I'm like, there's so much the brain, the human body can take, you know? So the crystal shards reflected the light. He took up the shards of different sizes, one by one, to mold them the cup base in his hand. He did it so patiently that he hadn't shown any anger even when he failed. It seemed as if he were carefully sewing a fragile and broken heart. He sighed lightly as he could still feel the teardrops on the fingertips. Somehow, he suddenly recalled those days when they had just met. He recalled her firm and bright eyes when she was saying she would work out a development plan that would make him repent. He recalled her vowing confidently with her chin raised. He recalled her naughtily asking him to be her program guest as well, as her greedily eating and caramel pudding he had made. In those days, she always expressed her emotions directly. When feeling happy, she grinned and her eyes seemed to be shining. When feeling angry, she looked like a pufferfish that couldn't help poking mysteriously. When watching movies or attending charity galas, she was easy to be touched and cried. All shards seemed to be reflecting her images of the past, the one laughing, acting cute, feeling wronged, flaunting her superiority, and shedding tears. In the image of now, the one was pretending to be tough and hiding tears with her bleeding fingertips. In the dimness, the first rays of the morning sun gradually came on to the horizon. Most parts of the crystal cup in his hand were already restored, while his hands were covered with messy cuts. Victor lightly turned his head to look towards the horizon in the far distance. He seemed to reflect a similar scene where they met again 10 years later. After frowning coldly, he looked down to focus on restoring the last part of the crystal cup. Before long, the complete crystal cup laid still in his hand, though it was roughly glued. Rubbing the marks of the glue, he slightly raised the corner of his lip, lit by the scattered rays. As his shoulders drooped slowly, he gradually fell asleep with tiredness, and that's where she found him there. I'll bring back what you used to be. Oh, yeah. So literally, he fell asleep. A character went in, tried to wake him up. And yes, in the attic, I believe. Victor backtracking. Is this... I think I know. Oh. This date conversation came up when he went to Lucian, and I remember that date. I think they talked about the White House. A day in 1908, with a loud noise in the wind, the kaze. Half of the sky was covered by the gloomy saffron yellow, and the mushroom clouds spiraled in the air for long, though it was before dawn. The sky was lit as bright as the sunlight. The continuous explosion that was mingled with people's cries and panic kept roaring in Victor's mind. The heat was scorching the earth. The kaze was howling and sweeping debris. He saw half of the White House afar had collapsed, and people there were terrified by the ruins of flames. Who wouldn't be, right? A harsh flare shone in against the white light of the explosion. When he squinted towards the flare, he suddenly felt a stabbing pain in his head. But seeing a teenager standing nearby, he rushed over to him. Are you okay? Are you okay? The teenager looked at him with puzzled eyes. Then, Daijoubu. I love that Spider-Man meme. Then he blinked and shook his head. I'm fine. What happened? The explosion just now. The teenager interrupted him with confusion and excitement. What explosion? Where is it? So cool. Okay, well, the flames that were reflected in the teenager's eyes seemed to have burned up everything. In 1908, an explosion took place in the White House. No casualties, but the people there said they hadn't experienced this explosion. The man's words flashed in his mind. Victor looked at the people around him. Like the teenager, everyone seemed to know nothing about what happened. Only a lad was particularly familiar, but Victor couldn't recall where he had met him. With a pocket watch in hand, that lad left with complicated eyes. Victor walked away from the vicinity of the White House into a hidden street corner. As the night breeze blew over, he disappeared in a flash. Standing again on the street 1 year later, he felt that nothing seemed to have changed, except the disappearance of the people on the list in his hand. There is no Vane here. Who is Chris? Like the dead, silent night. They didn't have any trace. First of all, why is he even there? I don't even know. He seemed trace of existence. He seemed to have realized something. With eyes gradually tightened, he turned around and disappeared at the end of the corner. From where he stood just now rose a mild melody of violin, like a gaze coming from nowhere. Honestly, that kind of made no sense. A little bit. Oops. Sorry. All right. So now we got Lucian's The Eve. Oh, let's see. White House. Why are we talking about the White House? Like I said, it was like him and Lucian. Like, okay. The inquiry report in the 1908 White House explosion, and the folder was gone through again and again under the dim moonlight. Lucian leaned by the window with this folder in hand, fixing his eyes all the time on the record, which read, no explosion took place. So, I don't know, did Victor just... While tapping his fingertips against the desk, rhythmically. The situation had gone against his expectations before he knew it. The other day, Lucian received the research reports from other experimental groups on the flu virus, occurring this time. Oof. Despite that, piles of corrections have been made to the familiar theory of computation. None of these results satisfied him. Does he ever get satisfied by anything? His thoughts suddenly turned to the nickel in the box. Oh, Lord. Are we talking about Schrodinger's cat again? The success rate of the utilization of the reagent and the powerful words. The return to zero plan goes more smoothly than expected. The virus has broken up completely. The zero plan? Is that the plan? I don't know. When thinking of the words spoken by the fully confident voice, Lucian got more frosty, placing his crossed hands under his jaw and blinking. Outside the window, the thick clouds of the sky moved slowly, their shadows on the earth swaying slightly until fading in the darkness. And the corner was shrouded in the dim moonlight. The desk calendar he saw reminded him of the press. Sometimes there were some things worth taking a chance. He looked down at the invitation to the press conference on the desk. Suddenly, a familiar figure flashed in his mind. Her smiles, tears, murmurs, and warmth, all of them came up to his mind. But all these scenes were faded into black and white by time. Lucian's fingertip, of course. I always wondered why his eye, in particular the right eye, and I think I know why. Lucian's fingertip unconsciously touched his right eye, which remained unscathed, I don't know. At the press conference tomorrow. Oh, is that the press conference in that scene where, that scene was just my favorite in the entire game where they confronted each other? We would meet Eye, even though he would lose the only color in his life on location. Yeah, I got you. It's that scene, huh? Beyond the dreamland. All right. In a secluded lane, Lucian slowly opened his eyes. In his arms lay a girl sleeping restfully. He tried to tighten his arms, but his shoulders were somewhat numb, and it took him a little while to do this. As he lifted his eyes and looked around, he saw a faint glow coming from a car at the end of the lane. He lowered his head to touch the girl's soft hair, recalling a scene that as hazy and illusory as the wrinkled surface of the lake. Noticing a large area of scarlet on her clothes, he carefully examined it till he made sure she was unscathed, and then took her into his arms again. If you're wondering, I don't think I could progress the story. It just slowly does that because I'm trying, but... Okay, so in a lane, and she got hit on her clothes. Lucian stretched lightly and frowned about the blurred memories in his mind. With the girl in his arms, outside the window, it was sprinkling endlessly. The girl slept in the bed. Less restfully, Lucian lightly smoothed her frowns. He quietly gazed at her with his eyes glimmering in the night. As the time had slowed its pace, a long time had passed before he left without a trace, as it had never happened. Oh no. When the memory came to his mind again, Lucian felt his heart tightening in his left chest burning faintly in the darkness. He reached the end of the corridor and went through a couple of identity validations before he finally walked into the dimmer laboratory. He sat on the chair quietly and wore the device on his head. The monitor in front of him displayed the numbers changing rapidly. Something intangible was recorded in the form of what? Tangible. Not until sweats appeared on his forehead did he let out a sigh of relief and take out the device in his head. He casually tore a piece of gauze to bind up the wound that stained his shirt. The record files were just printed out. After a quick browse, Lucian put them into the folder named memory. Oh. Reflected by the cold electronic light, Lucian's eyes looked piercingly cold, with a glint of softness shown only at the moment. Some figure flashed through his mind. Walking out the laboratory, Lucian knew many things were awaiting him. Yeah, because I think... There was a part, I think in this chapter, where he literally took pills for his memory. Is this what this is talking about? You know, I'm gonna assume. I don't know, but that was, holy crap, that was depressing. Gavin's overlooking. The night wind howled in the air. The city went to sleep in peace. As its lights dimmed, peace finally returned to this land again. Gavin stretched his legs against the steps of the edge of the roof, overlooking the night scene of the whole city with his brows knitted. No clues were retained in the monitoring of the Kudo Swan Collective, and the interrogation of some evolvers caught in the TV tower also came to a deadlock. Shocker, I guess. Behind the puzzle, The wicked and hateful figure still lurked in the darkness, as if waiting for the next opportunity. The thick and heavy dark clouds completely covered the sky. Gavin lightly lifted his hands and unfolded his palms, feeling the traceable breeze mingled with some gusts of uncontrollable black wind that came rapidly and sharply. Suddenly, his hands clenched into fists, trembling uncontrollably. He looked up at the shade with a blend of emotions. The girl's upset and stubborn face flashed in his mind. Not now. Instantly, his eyes got brighter and determined, as many things were awaiting for him to protect. The moon, the Suki, could finally be seen through the clouds. The Kaze rustled together with a faint wave of laughter in the night. Suddenly, he noticed the distance a sky wheel erecting on the water. With some test lights glittering, they came up with a good idea. He noticed the distance a sky. Oh, is that... when we get the funny out of context, like, are you wet? Oh boy. As he looked up to see the office building where the girl worked, he couldn't help but smile gently. The brand new science museum beside would be open soon, so despite it was midnight, the staff still came back and forth at the gates of the Ferris wheel, working on the final preparation and adjustment. A few people were playing happily on the streets. The roaring of the motorcycles pierced the quiet breeze and faded into a far unknown distance. They all made the slightly gloomy night full of energy somehow. Such a quiet and warm city. She should come and see. A clerk came out of the cabin of the sky wheel, stretching himself sleepily. Gavin looked up at the sky wheel thoughtfully and then walked towards the clerk in the breeze. Oh, the past. As the street lights broke down, it got pitch dark around the convenience store. The man was just outlined against the blue light from his phone screen, leaning against the utility pole. Lytton, is that... No, that's... Right now, I can't remember. I know this man's name has been mentioned before, I guess through Gavin, but I don't remember. Lytton occasionally glanced at the phone screen. A group of lads walked over, laughing. One of them couldn't help but glance at Lytton when passing by. Wait. Oh, is that the kid's dad's name? Ugh, I think so. Lytton looked up at him, and the lad moved one... Lad? Or is the kid's name... Fuck, I don't remember. Moved one step backward on instinct, with one more glance at Lytton. For the lad, Lytton seemed to be just a somewhat strong or ordinary man, but his eyes were so... The lad shook his head to stop overthinking. Then he rushed to catch up with his companions and walked to the convenience store. In a trance, he saw many lads in police uniform in his mind. They were playing on the training ground, lurking the streets at midnight, and running through the rain of bullets. Amongst them, there was a special one. He was as lonely as what Lytton used to be, with an air of wildness. Okay, this is definitely not the kid. He always looked apathetic, as if being separated from others by a transparent wall. But Lytton felt he was different from Gavin. He swiped across the screen and tapped on that photo of a family with three with happy smiles. He had a family to take care of. That was a true bond. While Gavin... Sometimes Lytton could feel that Gavin seemed to be concerned with something, but more often he was really like a lone wolf, with nothing in his mind except that clear Suki. Somehow, Lytton had an instinct that compared with himself. Gavin had a stronger and purer belief. Then his phone screen was lit up by the message. Let's meet and talk about it. Now, what he was going to do was... All right. Break the unbreakable belief. After the reply was such a simple word, the screen went dark again. Holy crap, bro. Oops. Okay. Keto, hidden action. In the pitch-dark room, a masked man holding a gun gazed on at his feet with impatience sewn on his locked lips. Is that the scene in the library? The last scene. The man said in a low and deep voice. His words seemed to have turned into a closely woven net, enveloping the narrow space and controlling all people within it, so they had nowhere to run. Another man in Kudo guarded the door, couldn't help but slightly tremble, while the third man in the room drooped his head, paying no heed. That man's hand... Oh, his story's 5. Hands were wrung up high, scars running like the winding pythons on his arm. He fell upon his knees, his messy clothes getting full of dark red bloodstains. He kept still, looking as if dead or in a sound sleep. totally integrated into the darkness. Keto didn't move until the gun reached his golden hair. He looked up silently without any fears in his eyes. Fear in his eyes. With the sound of crack, the gun was loaded. Why did you help her? Why did you help her? Oh, the masked man uttered coldly again. Answer me, traitor. Keeping silent, Keto cocked his head to the left of the dark muzzle, aimed at him between his eyebrows. He looked at the man in front, seemingly with no fear of him, no fear of guns, and no fear of death. Irritated, that man lifted his foot and treaded on Keto's shoulder, adding a layer of fresh red to the completely dried dark red clothes. The sudden sharp pain made Keto groan slightly. His head was knocked onto the wall behind the backside of it bled. Oof. Seeing Keto frowning, that man chuckled contentedly and crushed him heavily, throwing the gun on the ground. The man turned around and walked towards him. Finish him. The sweat and blood had wetted Keto's golden hair, fell along his forehead, making his whole world red in a flash. His world red in a flash. Seeing the man disappear behind the door, the man in Keto picked up the gun on the ground and walked towards Keto step by step. Keto smiled. In the darkness, there seemed to be a glowing beast. Something was approaching slowly. Then, as the bracelet on Keto's hands were gone, he coughed, held the wall behind, and stood up. It was still pitch dark around, but Keto knew he had come to another place. In the deepest darkness, a faint blue light suddenly came, followed by a low and deep voice. We meet again. Oh, well, that was in that scene? Okay, not the library. Okay, gotcha. The narrow, long corridor in the hospital was unlit. The only light for the whole floor was from that room beside the staircase. Sitting in front of the computer, Helios tapped the keyboard rapidly. On the screen flashed many codes. A few moments later, the screen flickered and a man's shadow appeared at the center of the screen, and the scene was a dark, shrouded room with dozens of screens locking onto the same place, the courtyard of the hospital, where a surprising number of bombs were laid in the apple pie order. Leaning against the chair, that man looked very pleased, as he was waiting for mayhem to ensue. Helios. Helios snorted disdainfully and continued operating the computer deftly. Tick, tick. As the second hand pointed to 12, Helios pressed enter, and on the dozens of screens simultaneously came the same scene, where amid the engulfing flames and thick smokes, the hospital collapsed in seconds. Laughing contentedly, the man in the scene stood up and left his room. Helios looked up at the hospital that was supposed to collapse, chuckling, and uttered a word of stupid. Walking out the room, Helios looked toward the courtyard. A dead silence covered the whole hospital. The corridor without windows was in total darkness, as if a dreadful monster would come in seconds after a what? However, with a sudden boom coming from the courtyard. This is the explosion, no? Yeah, the ground shook violently. A glint of surprise flashed into Helios' eyes, but soon he realized that what it was, and then rushed to the gate of the hospital without hesitation. Turns out I'm tricked. So fast. The ground was cracking and everything was sinking. Helios ran and jumped as fast as he could. The gate was close at hand, but on the other side of the porch he found an unexpected figure. The girl looked extremely flustered. As the earth was shaking, she almost slumped to the ground, but her eyes were always on Helios. How come she... A blend of emotions fermented inside Helios, but did he actually remember her? But he restrained them and only showed anger. In the blowing dust and falling winds, Helios got tiny wounds on his face, but he didn't care about it and leaped from a falling stone, gripping that girl in his arms. He seemed to see a strange self in her confused eyes. Damn, bro. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. These things should have been free, although. Yeah. Well, okay, hold on. If I'm not mistaken, I think those free tries got you up to the 2100 mark only. So I guess to get the rest of the box, I don't think I spent diamonds on this, right? No, I don't think so. It's only like 200, so I guess that's not too bad. Still, it should have been free, honestly. And now I actually have... No, I don't have enough to buy anything, bro. Damn, not even stamina. Not even gold. Oops. I mean, is this even worth it? No. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't expect to actually finish those little stories, the box world, but I did. And like I said, today is the last day for this event. Time went by so quickly. I can't believe it. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time, my friends. Bye-bye.